All right, let's go. Welcome to eCom Raw Reality episode 18. And in this one, we will talk about something that just happened recently, the Trump tariffs. And as we know, this has a huge impact on almost everything. Just because we are consumers, you are a consumer, I'm a consumer, we all buy stuff, right? And if we look around us, so just look around you, you will probably see a few things that are most likely, maybe even most of them, are manufactured in China, even though they might actually be sold by a US company, right? So this is definitely a very complex topic. So we won't try to get into the actual nitty gritty, like, all right, who is trying to win? Who will win? This is probably one of the most important questions. What will happen? I mean, I don't have any of those answers. So what I'm trying to actually say in this video is that let's look at this situation and let's think ahead, because I think that's one of the most important things, right? I mean, if you look in the past, you might get some data and so on, but the most important thing almost always is looking in the future and trying to understand what's most likely to happen. And then for you, for me, for everyone that watches this video as well, making sure that we are in the right spot when it comes to not being, let's say, I won't swear here, but you know what, by anyone, right? So the main thing to focus on, especially on the e-com side, right? Because if we think about e-commerce, most of it is guys selling in US or maybe Germany or maybe France and so on. But in most cases, where is that sourced from? Well, it's sourced from China, because in China, things are very, very cheap still, even though if you look at the graph over time, of course, things become more expensive. Why? Because of inflation. And I would say that we kind of need a reset at this point, because if you're in e-commerce, right, you probably know that 2020, 2021, maybe even 2022, even though less, were spoiled years for many e-commerce founders, brands, and so on, right? Because everyone was at home, everyone was spending online, and everyone thought that's like the normal, right? Like making money easily. But that's not the truth, right? Because personally, I work with multiple e-commerce brands right now. I still remember the days from 2022 when it was horrible. Everyone was expecting sky high results, and the results weren't as sky high because 2022 wasn't 2021, right? And some people just forget that you need to actually like look at what's happening, what's reality, and understand what is, let's say, realistic, right? Because like me, you, almost anyone out there, can we become millionaires? Yeah, we can. Like I'll probably become a millionaire in a few years. It just depends on myself mostly, right? And a few external factors from the economy, right? So some things are in your control, some aren't, as we know. And for example, the tariffs are not in our control. So if something is not in our control, what can we do? Well, in most cases, just being prepared for multiple scenarios. And that's why, for example, right now, in today's world, it's really important to just have options, to have autonomy, to think about yourself, of course. And I'm saying that because unless you think about your family, let's say, or about anyone else, then you definitely need to make sure you are in the best state that you can be, right? I mean, if you don't have money, it's going to be harder to actually help someone else to make money or to support them with money, right? And that's why it is really important to focus on us as individuals. And I would say then try to focus on helping others. But of course, that doesn't mean that you can do both at the same time. It's just that it's about priorities. If you don't put your oxygen mask first, you can't put it on someone else, right? You're dead. So that's what I'm actually trying to say here, not necessarily trying to be egoistical or anything like that. But if we look at tariffs, right, they are likely to make a few changes. And if we think where exactly, well, in terms of prices, because if there's an additional tariff, if something comes from China, then the price will be higher. And that goes usually to the end consumer, because a brand won't just say, all right, let's make less money. Although that's likely if you don't want to profit more. You could do that. However, in most cases, it goes to the consumer. And let's be honest, some consumers out there, me included, are probably consuming too much. Too much protein, too much carbs, too much sugar, too much caffeine. I have way too many energy drinks here in my home. And the thing is that, what is the impact of that? Well, we'll have to reduce our consumption, most likely, right? So if we look at the e-commerce space, how would that affect it? Well, it will be harder, maybe. We'll have to see, right? If this goes through, if prices will go up, because the goal is actually to have, at least for the US, to have more things manufactured in the US. That doesn't mean everything will be manufactured in the US. And think of it like this. If something costs you in China $1 and in the US it costs you around $4, even with the tariff, it can be 100%, right? Double the price. It's still $2, while in the US would be $4. So there's always going to be some kind of leveling of the playing field, right? This has happened for a long time, and actually I have here a picture of the tariffs. And let's not forget that USA is also doing these nudges because they want to be more powerful and so on, although that's the main goal, just having more power. And who can blame them? Like, wouldn't you want to have more power for yourself or the ones close to you? Like, it just makes sense. And you can see that there is actually like a table of tariffs, so reciprocal tariffs. All right, I don't use that word way too often. And the thing is that, for example, China has a tariff of 67% on the US, right? And the US is basically just trying to reciprocate here, and it's putting half of that for almost all countries here. So for China, it's putting 34% because that's half of 67, around half. And then, for example, European Union has a tariff charged to the US of 39%. And the US is just like doing a 20%. And I might be biased because I do like the US. I like freedom. I'm very big on freedom, if you haven't picked up on that yet. And if the US or any country out there is doing anything for freedom, honestly, I am for it, because why wouldn't you? Like, if you think about the opposite of freedom, it's in terms of what kind of a political party, it would be the communism, right? And in most cases, I don't see anyone celebrating being happy, overly happy, because they live in a communist country, right? I'm coming from a communist country, Romania. So clearly, comparing the days from then and now, I know there's just way more option here. And I'm also talking about most people who are ambitious, right? Because if you're not ambitious at all, then you might have a better time in communism. But the problem is that almost no communist country ever has been the best in the world at making the world a better place for everyone else around them, right? So if we look at the opposite of that, we have the US, which isn't perfect, right? I mean, so many problems there. I mean, that's why I wouldn't live in the US. And it's also a very high cost of living, right? But if someone is born there, if they are tied to the US, then of course it's actually beneficial for anyone who is in power in the US to take the decisions that would help that country, right? So you can't blame anyone who takes a decision to help their country, but ideally it's not in a way that costs other country much more, right? So this is why you can see that it does make sense. If a country has very high tariffs on you, you should put higher tariffs on them, right? And coming back to e-commerce, to online sales and so on, well, I think we are in a spoiled era anyway, right? Maybe in 10 years from now, we'll see that what we were doing right now is actually like a lot of shitty activities and harmful as well. Like, think of scrolling on your phone. That's probably something that we'll look back on, maybe us or future generations, and decide that, man, we were really wasting time scrolling on TikTok, on Reels and so on. But there is something to them. There is some bonding that can happen, because personally I send Reels, I receive Reels and so on, right? So it is like a love language, the sixth one, let's say. But jokes aside, looking at the e-commerce space and so on, if you're a winner in any kind of era, in any kind of environment, right? So that's why I wouldn't say that there's much to worry about in most cases. It's just that things might become harder, but that's when you become better. So these are cliches, of course, but looking back at your life, in most cases, we grow when we have some adversity, when there's a challenge, when there's chaos. So definitely need to be aware of that. And I guess that was what I wanted to share. It's more like a pep talk for me, maybe more the most in these videos, but also maybe it helps you with another perspective, with optimism, because I mean, in most cases, this is what you'll probably see around here, not a lot of pessimism, because I do believe things can always get better, they can be fixed, and we just need to focus on the problem and then find the solution. So if we always do that, it's unlikely for us not to have at least a decent life, decent results, and decent means at least average, like that should be the minimum. So with all of that being said, that's pretty much it for today's video. Pretty short, out of the ordinary, just because this was mainly on my mind right now. But I think we're always going to be doing good, because in most cases, for centuries and for decades now especially, things have been going in our favor, and we live in the best times in terms of longevity, stuff we can eat, stuff we can do, freedom to travel around the world and have autonomy. So we'll end it with that, and until next time, peace out.